Me for another industry chat on this awesome Anima-saurus channel. Today I'm very lucky to be joined by Gareth Young, who's a layout previs artist for Animal Logic, currently Animal Logic down in Sydney. Thanks Gareth, thanks for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
For someone who's kind of not run across a previs artist who's worked for anyone so long, let's go back and just kind of say what sort of stuff you get yourself doing from day to day.
So I am a lead at Animal Logic, and so I don't essentially get on box and doing shots, but I do. We essentially get scenes from the client, and then basically we have a scene kickoff with the client and everything, and they go through the emotion and what they're trying to portray and what the intentions are of stuff, and then we go off and we look at maybe the storyboards and the animatic and we map down what lenses and stuff we'd like to use and if it's a close-up, if it's a wide, if it's establisher, things like that, and then we brief the artists and cast those shots out. Once that happens, they go off and do their shots, spend a couple of days on there, and during that time I'd be doing desk rounds and things like that and making sure everything's on track. And then once they're ready, they check in their shots and we put it up for review in the theatre. So during that time, I'm sort of trying to get up to scratch to a level where the supervisor can give good notes rather than just like little, I make sure that none of the, there's focus issues or those little niggly things are always addressed and they're always good to go. But put together what you call an RV session, which is basically a rough animatic. Present it to the supervisor, and then we go through shot by shot and review them all.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool. That's a really cool wrap of a whole session kind of done. I love that. That's cool. But of course, you never actually started out as a lead. So let's go back to where you start. What sort of got you? How did you sort of stumble on into the field of previs artists?
So previs, so basically, I guess you have to start back from when I was a kid. I always liked drawing. Drawing was pretty much like my passion, and so I just drew superheroes. I loved comic books and everything like that. So that's all I really did, and that's all I showed interest in. That and sports, and so basically I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I ended up going into a design degree, doing design. I came from Christchurch, New Zealand, so opportunities for working in a film industry was very, very small. So there weren't any leads, there weren't any real job opportunities. So I went to design. But the thing with design, it allowed me to really learn a lot of the craft that I use now, which would be like really strong composition, really good, because essentially Previs and Layout artists, we're designing shots. And we had to think about the whole frame and how it feels and how it's weighted and everything like that. So I learned a lot of those fundamentals in my design degree. When I was getting near the end of that degree, I did a 3D modeling and animation course. And just because I wanted to do it. It wasn't essentially because I wanted to get into it, but I was just like, I want to do it. So I did that, and then I went to Wellington and just tried my hand at getting a job and things, and I really struggled with trying to get my foot in the door, actually a solid job. So for 2.5 years, I really struggled with wasn't holding down a job, it was just getting contracts for long enough to be able to, sustain living, really. So in between, I was like doing temp work and everything like that. But to get to my previs thing, a guy at the time that I worked with, he said, I'm going to the Gold Coast. He goes, they're looking for working on TV series and stuff. And he goes, we're doing previs. And I'm like, sweet, what's previs? And he's like, it's just stuff with cameras. And I'm like, I could do cameras. But really, I had no idea about how to do cameras. I just thought I could do cameras, but I had no idea. But anyway, overnight I put together a show reel and then I emailed them, and then within 2 weeks I was on the Gold Coast.
Oh, wow!
Yeah.
2-week turnaround.
So I was like pretty much like sold my car, got rid of my furniture, everything, and just like moved to the Gold Coast within 2 weeks from the interview. Yeah,
that's
and it was crazy. And
yeah, that's really cool. Actually, just being able to turn that around that quickly. Going, oh yeah, you know what? Life is free and it's short. Let's just go.
yeah, well, I mean, I was struggling for a long time in Wellington, and it was an opportunity that was unknown, but it was something that I was like, it's an 18-month contract. I need to do it, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, during that time in Wellington, there were so many times where I thought, you know, this is too hard. I'm going to give up and stuff. But doing that was just, you know, being that out of your comfort zone thing.
Yeah.
Ended up being like the best decision of my life. So
yeah,
it was a real opportunity for me. And during that, I worked closely with the director that was there, who's David Scott, who eventually became my mentor. So he taught me the ins and outs of cinematography, you know, framing, shot choices, lensing, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, he really helped hone that skill during Previs. And yeah, and then I just go, this Previs thing's awesome. Yeah,
just kind of.
So that's how it started.
Yeah, well, that got you on the Gold Coast. Was that then just when it wound up, you just kind of stayed in Australia, kept looking for more work, or?
Yeah, so from then, so I said that, I mean, that was 18 months, and that was in 2006. And then once that project wrapped up, David actually recommended myself and 2 other people a job on a feature film called Wolverine.
Oh.
So, yeah, obviously we know what the film's like, but at the time I was just like, this is the best thing ever. And so that was in Sydney.
Yep. Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I had that same feeling where I was like, oh my God, I'm moving to Sydney. This is like, you know, scary stuff. But I did that with Heidi and Haley. I don't know if you have spoken to them, but
yep.
Yeah, I met those 2 on Animalia as well. And so
yeah,
that was really cool. So we all moved to Sydney and got a job at Rising Sun Pictures doing Previs on Wolverine.
Nice. And yeah. You kind of settled into the Sydney lifestyle that much.
Yeah. So I ended up just staying there. So we're doing that for like maybe 5 months, and then I got a job. So that was like next level Previs. That was when we started to do proper, you know, like it's similar to the Previs you see still like to this day, where it's very like texture. We're doing effects, like quite a lot of heavy animation. You know, creating our own edits and things like that. So that was really cool. Yeah. And then I ended up at another company called Spinifex, which do more of an experience type projections rather than normal film and TV. So they'd do stuff for Vivid, for instance, you know, Sydney Vivid, and we did things like, you know, the opening of the Beijing Olympics. These big, you know, scrolls and everything on the floor, and so I became like a 3D generalist for that company for about 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And and then they offered me a full-time job, which was like a dream come true when you're a 3D artist. But I did have dreams of getting into animal logic, so I, you know, respectfully declined, and then I said, oh look, I want to, you know, try my hand at feature film, and then eventually, I think a couple of months later, I got accepted into animal. So
yeah, well, so it's been a progressive dream to come into get into animal logic, and like you said, now you're actually kind of worked your way there that long that you're, you know, full time working on features, which is pretty awesome. So
yeah. I'm definitely like because of the journey and because of the struggles I had early on, I'm always so grateful for where I am, and just appreciate everything about it.
Yeah. Well, let's just touch on that time here, you know, because you've got to work on quite a few really, you know, quite iconic, you know, features which have come out of Australia. So what's some of the features you've actually had your hand on now?
Some of the features that I've worked on. So the first feature at Animal Logic was Legend of the Guardians. So that was the first project that I came on as a Previs artist. So I started as Previs, and we did a lot of the shots, the action, the fight sequences and stuff, and things like that. Then I moved to rough layout, and then moved into stereo and flow, final layout.
Yep.
And then I actually also did the end credit sequence. So at the end credit sequence, there's like puppetry type stuff going on and stuff. And so I animated a lot of that stuff in After Effects.
Oh, nice.
Weirdly. So yeah, I did that as well. So that was really enjoyable. So I did that, and I did like the Lego movies.
Oh, yes.
So Lego 1, Batman, Lego Ninjago. Lego 2 as well, which they flew me to Vancouver for, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also did, what else do we do? I've done other ones there was one called Monk, which is a Chinese one. I did Peter Rabbit 1, Peter Rabbit 2.
Yep.
There's a stint where I went to Fuel VFX during that time as well, where I did some work on Iron Man 3 and the Hunger Games, which was really cool too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you just touched on Peter Rabbit 2. So since that's only just come out, everything's still kind of pretty fresh about the excitement of it being released, because it got delayed release because of everything that sort of went on. And it's also quite a interesting sort of film in that it is 2D, it is 3D inside real life. So how was the pipeline, or what was some of the challenges that you had to face and kind of overcome with that compared to just a traditional full out 3D Lego movie type thing where you had control of everything?
So it's called what we call a hybrid. So part 3D, part 2D. Obviously shooting with plates. So it's very similar to visual effects films where you'd shoot the plate and then attach any sort of 3D elements to it. So there was a bit of a process where I guess you start off with the storyboarding, and then they go out and shoot the plates. Quite often they'd have a Peter Rabbit stuffy kind of thing on a stick. So the actors will know how to where the eye line would be.
Where the eye line is, yeah.
Things like that. And then they'd also use things that would interact, so they could touch the stuffy. And so we would obviously like make it feel like they're holding the rabbits or anything like that. So once they shot the plates, we would bring it into, we'll give it to our trackers. So our tracking team will line up the 3D set with the plate using a LiDAR.
Yep.
So LiDAR is basically a 3D photoreal scan of the environment.
Yeah, because LiDARs are also used a lot in architecture too, aren't they? For like getting the ground plane and everything, or...
Yeah, they are. And AR now as well.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Yeah, so it's becoming quite a useful tool through many industries now. But at the time, we'd get a LiDAR scan, and then they would line everything up. And so once they line the 3D environment up with the plate, they would also bake the live action camera into the software. So we would get a 3D version of that camera.
Yeah.
Cool. So from then on, we can add our rabbits and place them in the space to make it feel like, they're in the right area as well when they're interacting with the environment and stuff. Because obviously, if there's a table there'll be a 3D model of the table in our scene where we'd place the rabbit and everything. Cool. And then we'd have to go from storyboards. But the funny thing in storyboarding, a lot of the time was scale was really wrong. So quite often in the storyboards, so what they'll do is basically have the plate, and then they would do draw overs of the rabbits.
Yep.
So to get an indication of what they were doing. But the rabbits would sometimes look like kangaroos. Just massive. And we're like, that's just
not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So as layout artists, we have the ability to be able to zoom in to a certain point, like 30%, and recompose those shots to make them work with each other as well. So there was a lot of compositional changes and tweaks that we would have to make from the original shoot to make it work with the proper scale of everything, and also make it work well over the cut and things like that. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, because it's an interesting thing working with, because like you said, it's very much basically a special effects film throughout each shot, because each shot's basically got 3D elements, which is a special effect over pretty much every shot within the film. So
yeah, that's right. So it's different to full animation. I enjoy the process of full animation much more because it gives you that ability to be able to do really anything you want.
Yep.
With Peter Rabbit, it's like with effects films, as a previs artist and a layout artist, we love the cameras. We love working with framing and we love doing that stuff. And there is a limitation if the camera's already done, obviously, with the plate that we have to work with. So, but it depends on what you really enjoy doing as well.
Yeah.
That's just personal preference.
Yeah, but that's it. Like each film you work on has got its own unique, different challenges which you get to work with, or different problems. So, well, since you're down in Sydney, inside all the working conundrum of all the activity and the hive of feature films that's happening down there, what's the general vibe of the place like now that Australia is heavily invested in getting a lot more features, and the Fox studio itself has attracted quite a lot of features and like Netflix films and that down onto the studio lot. What's the vibe like down there now?
Well, most recently it's been pretty. It's interesting because obviously during COVID as well, it's everyone's very cautious and everything, but the vibe itself is there's a very big buzz around the lot. It is owned by Disney now, so. We're actually not allowed to go and roam the Fox lot like we used to.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's a lot of places we are not allowed to go, which is unfortunate. But you can see, sometimes we've been at the cafe and we'd see Taika Waititi like just cruising around in a big Mickey Mouse jersey. Just going, it's really cool, and things like that's really really fun to see.
Yep.
And then. ILM is there as well now. So so they were there, and they've shot some of the Mandalorian there, and they're all working on whatever they're working on and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
So there is because you were in Animal, like you said, you've been there for such a long time. You've been on the lot when the lot's been very quiet and there's not much going on. So it must be good to actually have more people just actually around working and seeing that there's more stuff happening.
Yeah, it is. It is very encouraging as well for our industry.
Yeah.
And Australia as well.
Yeah.
So knowing that there's things going on and there is a bit of quite a big buzz going around, and just more opportunities for people as well, which is really good.
Yeah. Oh, with that, I mean, you've obviously been working on some stuff that's not actually completely released yet. So what's some of the fun projects which you've got, which you can talk about, which are coming up?
So the one of the fun ones that we've actually it's still actually being worked on now over in Vancouver. It's called Super Pets, like DC Super Pets. And then I think Dwayne Johnson just released a post, and there's been some news about it that he's voicing the main character, the protagonist, Crypto. So it's pretty exciting. It's very fun. It's a very fun animated feature where it's sort of similar to, I guess, it's Secret Life of Pets meets Justice League.
Oh,
and I think it's going to be a pretty fun movie. It's beautiful. It looks beautiful. Animal Logic, know how to really turn up the
visual styles.
Yeah. So that's not out for a while, but it's good that there is some buzz coming out about that now, because it wasn't until I saw that Instagram post from from
Right.
Dwayne Johnson that I was able to go, oh yeah, sweet, which is really cool.
Yep.
And the one that I'm working on at the moment is called The Magician's Elephant, which is based on a book, and that's going to be released through Netflix.
Oh, cool.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful, cute story about a boy and an elephant and his journey to find his sister. So it's very, set in sort of an old provincial European town. And again, like the visuals, the style is going to be, another level again. It's always so gorgeous, especially when you see all the artwork and things.
Yeah. Especially when you're used to the layout previs of it, where it's usually just grey.
Yeah, I mean that's what I love. Like, being at a company like this where you can just look on, the network, and you have a shot that we do in layout, and it's like, oh yeah, cool. But then you see animation take it, and you're like, wow, they really bring those characters to life.
Yep.
And then like that's what I love about it. Like if we can get an emotional scene and create a camera language where you feel the characters with no animation, just cameras, then that's amazing. And then animation, add the little, the nuances and all the little, everything that they do with the acting.
Yeah.
And then it goes through, lighting, it goes through surfacing, all that stuff, and you see it and you're like, wow.
It all works together, and that's where the magic
and
sort
it
of
always
happens.
gives you that extra kind of like, extra little bit of motivation to get the next scene.
Yeah. Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and some of the cool hidden things behind the scenes about what an actual lead does, because leads are, they're a treasure to actually know. Not everyone knows what a lead actually does. So it's good to hear you wrap it up in such a nice way about the amount of work that you kind of control in the process.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's a really fun process. There's a lot of hard work and management, but I was always a person that loves being on box. I love creating shots, and I loved, doing that stuff. But then once you become a lead, you have to, I guess, let go of your own little things and actually, trust and allow the artist to come through in what you, in your sort of vision as well, which is really, really great. And, and you can help other artists develop and things like that, which is always
good. Yeah, you help people to create magic yourself as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that whole story with us, Gareth. If anyone wants to get in contact with Gareth, you can check him out either on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'll have links in the description below. But again, until the next time where I'm chatting to some other wonderful individual within this amazing network of people, I'll say bye-bye.